Hey guys, so just doing a follow-up on the text animation in Motion. I wanted to show you a couple other things that we went over today in class. This should be very brief, but it might give you some ideas for your project. So again, we're starting with our standard workspace 1920 by 1080, and we're going to do a 30-second animation, although you can change this and make it longer in the future. If you find that you want to have more time, you can actually see right here, we're at 30 seconds here. You can always go to the project area here, inspector properties, and then change your settings for duration to something like 60. And then when you do that, you'll notice down here that your time's still set to end at 30, but you can always drag this out to make it longer. So you can always add more time in. All right, let's go ahead and import two videos. I made, let's see, this flying video and this underwater video. So now we have two videos. They're both pretty small, as you can kind of see. So let's go ahead and scale them up. Select the flying video that looks just like this. And we'll scale that up to fill in our space. And then take the underwater video, turn that on. And again, we'll scale it up to fill in our space. You can see the BBC. Maybe we'll fill it up more. We're going to use this top video. You can kind of see what it is, just fish. It's nice texture. And then we're going to use the flying video underneath that. But notice what happens. It ends right here. If you want to extend video, you do it like we did in class with some of the other elements like the animated GIFs. You'll select that video, flying, right? You go to the timing area, and a couple things. You would end condition, loop it, and then just drag that up. You notice that gives you 100 more frames. If you need more, click on the number 100 and just drag it up to as much as you need. As you can see now, it's looping the entire way. Another really great thing here, I'm going to lower this a little bit so you can kind of see that it will expand, is our speed. So currently our speed looks like this, but if you want to slow it down, you can just type in 50 here, hit return. Oh, that's 550, and that will give you a much slower look. Now, if your video is stuttering because you go down below 50, like 25 or something, you'll see very slow, but it's kind of stuttering. What you can do is try the following frame blending mode, optical flow. It takes a while for this to be used, but once this goes the whole 900 frames, you'll get a much smoother look. It'll look a lot more realistic, but until that, it'll be kind of jittery, as you can kind of see, because it's still building the sequence. So we'll give that a chance to work, and then we'll see how that looks. And again, so slow motion, looping, those kinds of things. It's a lot smoother, but there is some jiggling, so I would not use this. I'll just use regular motion blending, and you'll see that's a little bit stuttery, but still not so terrible. Let's bring the speed back up to 100, because that's what I wanted in the first place, and bring our looping so it fills up the screen. So now we have two videos, one on top of the other, right? And then we're going to select our top video, and we're going to change our blend mode to something like difference, just to see what we get. And you can kind of see it's very colorful. Let's try something else like hard light. And that gives us two videos that kind of mesh together pretty well. Let's try soft light. And so you can play with the compositing here. And you also can, if you are using difference, and this is too extreme, you can always turn down the opacity on a blend mode. And now you get something where the image is just barely kind of coming in and out. You can kind of see that. All right, let's add some text, because this is what we're talking about today. So let's put some text here, and we're just going to call it text. I'm going to select all that, go to my text area format, and I'm just going to bring that up until it fills up the screen. My selection tool, kind of center it all up. So now we have text. It's on top of everything. You notice how it's set up here. Now you can move this underneath, and you notice now you get a little bit of this underwater element blending on top of that. So that's giving that text some texture, because that underwater, it's sandwiched between the three things here. And so we are using different, but if we used hard light, you can kind of see now the text is picking up some of those darknesses, but we still have the text. So that's another possibility, is to sandwich the text in between two video elements with a composite mode. Let's do something even more interesting. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of just reinforce this whole idea of text animation. We've been using just regular text animation, but you notice that you have a lot of like options here in the appearance to change the color. The layout, we talked about going on a path. You can change it from vertical to horizontal. So in this case, the text, now is vertical and not horizontal, but we'll undo that because we want it horizontal, right? And there's some tracking elements here, which are really nice, that allow you to, under format, just kind of spread text out and get it closer together. The nice thing is, if you like what's happening here with this slider, any of these sliders, whether it's the size slider, if you like that, or if you like this tracking right here, and you want to animate that, you guys know that you can just go right here to any of those parameters and add something like, I don't know, oscillate. And what that does is it will oscillate that parameter in and out. And you can obviously go to the behavior and then change the amplitude, so it's a little less crazy, but you can see now it's completely in motion all the time, just from that one little selection. Let's see, this underwater is a little too intense, so I'm just going to dial it down. There we go. So again, you can oscillate any of the sliders for any of the things that you see. So when we have text, that's one thing. Let's go ahead and take this oscillate and turn it off temporarily. And let's go back to our behaviors for text. Now, all these text behaviors, you should try them, but like say we want breeze in, and we take a look, it's only a very short thing here, and let's see what it does. It kind of just brings each character in randomly until you have the entire sentence come in at this endpoint. You see that? So that was breeze in. But when we look at the behaviors for breeze, we can open them up and controls, and you notice that there's a lot of controls here. Currently it's animating each character, but you could do this for the words instead to keep everything a little bit more legible, and you'll see now that the words themselves are being breezed in. You can also, if you don't like this crookedness right here, you can go to the parameters here, and you can see that it's got a slight rotation and angle, so I can change this like to 0 and this to 0 so that the angle is now completely flat. Now it just breezes in sideways like this. And again, these things, if they're red, that means there's some animation happening. So you do have to reset the parameters to get rid of that red. And then you've got stuff where you can start it like off screen like this, and then it should come on screen like that. So again, these are all things that you can actually hand animate with these properties. Okay, let's turn off the breeze and just work with our text. Finally, some nice things that we can do is actually add 3 dimensions and shadows with lights to this. In order to do that, I'm going to just show you. It's going to simplify this because there's a lot of technology, or a lot of like visuals happening with that video. I'm going to make a rectangle and put it at the bottom here, and you can kind of see it's the lowest thing. I'm going to scale this rectangle up so it's very much filling the screen, and we can't see it until we turn off the video. And you can see now I'm seeing just the white rectangle. Let's make this rectangle just a different color so we can see the white text that's there. Now, if I were to add something like a light, we've done this in class, and switch it to 3D, it gives you a nice vignetting, right? And what I'm doing here with the properties for that light is I'm bringing it closer to the screen. So that light, as it gets closer to the screen, doesn't cast as much light. And if it goes further away from the screen, it gives you light. The light does have this shadow button, and if you click on it, and I'll show you some of the features and change some of these things, you should get a shadow. But the problem is, so far we have no shadow because the text is not in front of the screen. If you look at the perspective view here, you can see that this is just a light with a sheet of paper that has the word text on it. So what we do is we take the text and we bring it forward in Z space. So I'm going to make this positive, and you see if I make that positive in front of that screen, you instantly get shadows, and I'll show you how that looks through the camera. Now those shadows are really harsh, so under the light itself you can change the softness and make it a little bit softer. In fact, you can go much higher than 20 just by clicking on the 20, and all of a sudden you have nice soft shadows. And remember, this is all being cast by this light. So if I select the light and move the light around, you can kind of see how this works, right? So say, for instance, I have the light here at the beginning of my animation, and I throw the light to the right. So I select a filter or a behavior, basic throw, and I throw it this direction. I'll show you that. There we go. And so this is what's going to happen just with a single light, some boring text, right? Now, if you bring in that underwater scene, right, and then you bring in that other information, you'll notice that the text is now in front of everything, so it's not sandwiched. So in order for the light and everything to work correctly with video, you need to get it off of that single layer. So we can do the same thing we did with the text to bring it forward. With this underwater, we can actually change the Z property and bring it forward so that it occludes the text, and then we'll change our blend mode to something like lighten or something like that. Let's see what we've got so far. So you can kind of now see that our text is kind of coming in, and we're in essence lighting the text, but we have all this beautiful stuff coming in and out. And we can change our opacity so we can see through that a little bit more. So you could use lights and textures, like for instance, let's turn off this group and dial this back into the back area. So the further back it goes, the bigger the shadows will be. Remember, this is what we're doing, is we're actually moving each of these planes backwards or forwards, you see? And so hopefully just seeing this and understanding how all these layers work with this light. And remember, this light element is lighting different things. So if you wanted to light just the background, it'll make the shadow silhouetted in black. Whereas if it's in front, the text becomes lit. And again, because you can animate almost all of these things, like throw the light from left to right, you can bring the light forward and backwards with the same concept using the Z axes, right? So have fun with this. The shadows are free when you start using lights, and so are the vignetting and like illumination possibilities. So I hope this helped a little bit. Again, play with a lot of these animated features here. Remember, you don't need to animate the characters. They can animate animate the words as well. Remember that everything that has a slider can be animated, right? So say, for instance, you want to take the light and make it brighter or darker. You can animate that easily with an oscillate, right? So everything that has a slider can be modified, right? So we've now oscillated the brightness of our light, so it gets darker and darker and lighter, as you can kind of see over time. And all that shadowing is for free. Now, if you don't want something to throw a shadow, this light makes shadows, but every individual element under the Properties tab has a shadow area here, and it can either cast shadows or not. So if I take my text and turn off cast shadows, now the text floats on top just like it did before. So it's not making shadows. It's up to you. Something can also receive shadows. So like, for instance, this flying video is receiving a shadow, but if I don't want it to receive a shadow, I just click and it no longer receives any of the shadowing at all. Okay, I hope this helps and gives you some other options to play with for your animated motion text.